The holidays can be a really difficult time for someone suffering from an eating disorder. There can be a lot of changes to routines and having to eat with others, maybe having to make decisions around different or threatening foods, whilst feeling increased stress, fear, and anxiety. There can be also reduced supports as well. Clinicians often go on leave around the holiday period, so that can leave people feeling pretty vulnerable. And for some, they might have grief relating to time spent on the eating disorder rather than time spent with loved ones. And this can sometimes come up at the holiday, during the holiday period. Other challenges can arise when families and loved ones come together, of course. We know that, for example, things like comments about body shapes and sizes, diet talk, body shaming, discussions around what people should or shouldn't be eating. There's a lot of discussion around morality of food. Maybe people might be talking about compensating with regard to food. For example, I'll exercise it off tomorrow, or I won't have a big lunch tomorrow, or something like that. So these are some things to think about when the holidays are approaching, and to be considering ways to really manage these things that come up quite commonly. Some of the strategies to consider are things like exploring what will come up for you or your clients in the past and what you anticipate might come up. Try and problem solve and plan ways to manage these stresses. Being prepared really helps. And this can involve planning of all aspects of the period. So that could be what you'll be doing or what your client will be doing during the holidays, who's going to be around, how long for, what's on offer in terms of food, what you or your clients like to eat. There could be coping mechanisms really planned in advance. There might be adaptations made to support coping with celebratory events. Um, we want to think about ways to cope if feeling overwhelmed. We want to consider, can adaptations be made to ensure there isn't sensory overwhelm? It can be a very stressful period. And also, of course, we know a lot of people with eating disorders are also neurodivergent. So we want to consider in advance what's realistic and helpful right now. So what's manageable? So for some of our clients, they might be, or for you, you might be stretching yourself, or our clients might be stretching themselves and setting some stretch goals over this period. For others, it's going to be all about just getting through it. So really think about what's relevant and appropriate for each person. We also want to be considering values. Sometimes the holidays brings with it pressure to do it all. So consider what's important to you or your clients, what's manageable at this time, what parts of the holidays are important. Consider what you used to enjoy before the eating disorder, what you would be doing if the eating disorder wasn't present, perhaps, and what would this occasion look like. See what that brings up for you. This might help determine what parts you or your client can let go of because it holds no value or importance, and focus on the aspects that are really in line with values. We definitely want to be thinking about managing diet talk. This comes up all the time. So we want to know, can conversations be had in advance to reduce diet talk? So maybe someone could advocate for this not being present, for example, or perhaps if you are an adult or you have an adult client, maybe they could be advocating in advance and not having to deal with it in a reactive, responsive way. We might also want to support the development of assertive statements. So, for example, talking about dieting is unhelpful for me. Let's talk about something else. Or I'd rather not discuss that. I don't talk about body shapes and weight. There are so many more interesting things to talk about, you know? Or when you comment on my food, I feel stressed. I'd prefer you didn't. Let's talk about something else. It's going to be really hard. It can take a lot of kind of practice. So, go gently with yourself if this is pretty tricky to start with. So really, really think about what your personal boundaries might be or what your client's personal boundaries might be. And we can really be exploring some ways to reinforce those. This could be things like leaving the room or maybe even leaving the event if things get pretty tricky there. We want to consider ways to manage eating disorder thoughts and behaviors if they're triggered and if they come up. So we want to think about what might come up, what could be evoked, and how might you draw on the resources that you've got and the strategies that you have or your clients have to cope with this. So this could be the development of things like self-coping statements, maybe drawing in the support of loved ones or others, using some self-compassion, and having plans to manage urges to compensate, for example. But having it all mapped out and planned in advance can really help. We certainly want to be considering the food, so plan how that's going to be managed too. This is going to be really different for everybody. So for some, it might be who's serving the meals. The younger clients, they might find it helpful to have somebody else serve it up, perhaps. But it might also be helpful to know that you're going to be serving yourself. Um, it might be certainly some of our clients have brought their own food to different events just because at this point in the recovery process, that's what feels safe and is the most helpful thing at that point in time. We certainly want no commentary around the food. So this can be a helpful thing to have a conversation in advance potentially, or have somebody else have a conversation around just not commenting on what you're eating and how you're eating and that sort of thing, because that can just make you feel like you've got the spotlight on you, make you feel pretty stressed. We also want to be planning some distractions after the events too. So this can help with urges to compensate or distract from the eating disorder urges and thoughts or behaviors that might come up after an event. So, some examples might be to connect with others, maybe to have some post meal distraction activities like a game or puzzles, music, or walk, or something like that. So, just having a bit of a list of appropriate strategies for you or your loved ones or your clients might be pretty helpful there. Also, it's okay to opt out. We've certainly had many clients opt out of events for the holidays or certainly significantly modify them to suit the individual's needs. Honouring and protecting mental health and well-being can be more important than participating in holiday activities, and sometimes just knowing there's choice in the matter can be super helpful. Amanda and I hope this has been really helpful. We're from Eating Disorders Training Australia. We welcome your feedback. Don't hesitate to give it. So shoot us an email info at eatingdisorderstrainingaustralia.com.au. Bye.